Hey everybody, it's me, deogenz, welcoming you to another edition of Pokemon of the Week. This week we're entering Uber territory to take on one of the most terrifying legendary dragons ever to be invented. It's the 4th gen's spatial spreader, Palkia. This poke is so superpowered, it can be physical or special, but clearly if you want the most potent power, you go with the spatial special. Due to its spatial rend, and I do recommend maxing that out with a PP max so that it has 8 instead of 5 turns to use, you tear with a stab force of a whopping 100 base dragon special slammer that spatial rend will write to your foes. It's why you need to max out your special attack and of course speed. I think it should be mainly obvious with a special sweeper so specially suited for what it spatially shreds. You'll want to include Surf as its other stab move. Here's a cool thing that makes it superior to use in double or triple battle scenarios. Combined with the Dreamworld ability Telepathy, it will not damage your side, only your opponent's. So normally Surf is non-discerning, and it damages anyone on the field who's not the user. So with Telepathy, I think it's a bit more useful than Pressure, especially if you plan to use double or triple battle scenarios with your metagame Uber battling. And might I add, Uber triple battles are amazing. Me and my friend with non-effort value trained pokes had a long drawn out fight, just because there was so much more prediction in between the actual matches themselves. Sending in Palkia to a gale of rain is a great thing to do, and when you do, be sure to include Thunder. Fire Blast, of course, is a nice way to mix up your special set here. There are a myriad of other options you have. Its move pool is anything but shallow. Another sweet effect of sending this water dragon out is that it's only super effectively hit by dragon pokes. Only 2 times effective though, so you can whittle away some of the initial super effective damage your opponent does with a Habon Berry. Although again there's great options like Choice Specs and Choice Scarf, but do keep in mind those will lock you into one move. However, a Choice Specs Spatial Rend is really hard to recover from, and usually Palkia will be able to outspeed whatever foe is on the field. Just be sure it's not a formidable dragon type that can do the same to it, like perhaps Giratina. And that's a great thing to bring up too, is don't get tricked into using Aura Sphere, commonly seen on Palkia special sets, into firing off towards a steel type that just gets switched with a ghost. So perhaps you want the Lustrous Orb, which is a great way to power up Palkia's water and dragon type moves. No matter how you look at it, Palkia is completely built to be a special tank. However, when altered with offensive stats and a remix of its moves, it can break down even some of the biggest behemoth walls in the Uber tier. Affectionately known as the Blissey Basher set, this mixes up the effort values so that it's not completely useless with special attacking, and that its physical offense will break down Blissey with 1 focus punch, or perhaps 2, depending on if it's got any hold items that will help it out. Unlikely that that's the case though. Using Substitute, Palkia can use Focus Punch without being disturbed, and Blissey, not being huge on the offensive onslaught, will have a difficult time trying to break its sub. So the way to use this Palkia would perhaps be later in the game when Blissey is trying to wall and whittle down your team with poison and other status affecting moves. Spatial Rend is still the go-to special stab dragon move for Palkia. That's why I invest the 156 EVs into special attack as I did. Now the items here, really you can't use any choice items because this depends on Substitute and then using Focus Punch, so right there you need to not just spam one move, but the Lustrous Orb and Habon Berry still come into effect greatly here. Because if your opponent has something up their sleeve, perhaps that's not the last poke on their team, and they do have another dragon, it would be great to whittle down their super effective strike with the Habon Berry so that your Spatial Rend can rip through their non-defenses and bring back that Blissey for the bashing. Thunder still a great thing to include, especially in a Rain Dance team, and the additional moves below are just for if you want another stab. That's Special Surf, Draco Meteor, but it will deplete your stats, keep that in mind. Fire Blast instead of Thunder if you don't want to go for a Rain team, and instead if you have Hail, Blizzard is good to bring on too, although you really won't need it because you'll have Spatial Rend to take the dragons on. However, if your opponent has their own Palkia, Blizzard will not be that effective. It will only be normally effective. So Spatial Rend is good to equip for your Uber team. So that is a top look at Palkia's most prominent stats and movesets to have in the metagame that is Uber. It's one of the most fun pokes to play with. It's why I encourage everyone to check out the Uber tier. Just playing with these stats, I mean, enormous power we're seeing here. Almost everything in the hundreds except for HP. And with the attacking and speed stats that it possesses, it really doesn't matter that it has a little less HP. Oh, poo, too bad. Nothing's gonna get by this Spatial Rend when you send them into another dimension. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Pokemon of the Week, and if you like this series and others here on Planet Poke, hit the subscribe button. If you're still a tad confused about all these effort value training terms, then head on over to my channel, youtube.com/deogenz, for my effort value expertise guide, which will guide you through all that you need to get in order to raise your pokes to be masters of metagame. See you next week.